Choose life, choose a job, choose a career, choose a family, choose a fucking big television.
It was mid-90s and it was Oasis and Blur and it was Trainspotting and it was just the most amazing time.
I had a bit much to drink, had a bit of an accident.
Everybody wanted to be in the movie.
He's always been lacking in moral fibre.
He knows a lot about Sean Connery.
It was just one of the best experiences at work I've ever had.
It's summer holiday with drugs.
Is that hash I can smell?
No.
It was like a dirty pleasure in a way. It was like, I shouldn't be enjoying this because they're bad people, but oh my God, they're so funny.
Look, I'm not a fucking buffy and that's the end here.
I don't recall it being on anything where everybody was so united in their desire to do the best job they could, you know.
In 1996, Trainspotting introduced audiences to a bunch of heroin-using, joy-seeking Scots who enjoyed a bit of junkie debauchery. Telling their stories, warts and all, made Trainspotting the most talked-about movie of the decade. Its characters entertained as well as appalled and proved irresistible to thrill-seeking cinema-goers. Directed with an adrenaline rush and edited to an inspired soundtrack, the film fed into the Britpop euphoria of the 90s.
That was always our vision of it, you know, that it should be very, very entertaining and incredibly energetic.
However, Trainspotting's attitude to drugs got right up the establishment's nose, so to speak.
With the dialogue largely made up of short words beginning with F, S and C and much injecting, it's accused of being at best non-judgmental, at worst endorsing heroin use.
Sounds terrible, but we were determined to show that why people took drugs as well as the bad effect, and I think you just had to show both. You had to show that it was fun and that it was awful.
It's the music and the humour that kind of makes people feel it's glamorising drugs.
Heroin's got great fucking personality.
People often described it as being a film about heroin addiction. It's an unfortunate side of their lives, and one which has a huge impact on them. But I think essentially it's a film about a group of friends.
Trainspotting follows the misadventures of jobless waster Mark Renton, who struggles to keep off heroin while boredom and dodgy pals conspire to keep him addicted. It was a second cinema release from newcomer Figment Films, the combined talent of director Danny Boyle, writer John Hodge and producer Andrew MacDonald had scored a surprise hit when their first movie burst rudely onto the scene.
The winner for the Alexander Korda Award goes to Shallow Grave.
Set in Edinburgh, Shallow Grave was a critical and financial success. Suddenly, Figment Films was the production company to watch.
It did £5.5 million at the box office here, and you look at films even now, you know, that's a huge number.
And it's a huge amount of money that confronts three flatmates in the black comedy thriller when they find their new lodger dead in his bed.
Go ahead then, telephone. Telephone the police. Tell them there's a suitcase full of money and you don't want it.
When we made Shallow Grave, I remember somebody telling me that it was one of 27 British films made that year. Now the average is 90.
At just 28, MacDonald had taken the first step on the same road as his celebrated grandfather, Emmerich Pressburger, who with Michael Powell had created some of the most memorable British movies ever. MacDonald wanted a piece of the family business.
I was working in London as a runner, and I wanted to be a film producer, and John was working as a trainee doctor and he wanted to be a screenwriter.
I'd wanted to be a scriptwriter for a while because, as a friend put it to me, you want a job where you don't need to go to work every day.
John Hodge was born in Glasgow and studied medicine at Edinburgh University. He was working as a doctor when his first screenplay found its way to television drama director Danny Boyle.
I got this script sent through the agent, which was this script Shallow Grave, and I read it, and it was like quite clear to me it was just so far ahead of anything else I'd read, just in terms of a movie.
Danny Boyle started out as a theatre director in the 1980s before switching to television, where his first job was on Inspector Morse. By 1993, he was gaining a reputation as an innovative drama director.
I was very lucky making good television, but I wasn't getting anywhere making films.
Well,
With the Figment team assembled and funding from Channel 4, Shallow Grave went into production. Danny had just finished working with New Zealander Kerry Fox, who he cast alongside two future stars.
Chris Eccleston, Doctor Who, and Ewan McGregor, you know, and it's just, and they were nobody at the time. They meant nothing to Channel 4, you know. It was Kerry Fox, so that was ironic.
I couldn't be prouder of my first movie. You know, it's a great way to have started.
Ewan McGregor had put in high-profile appearances in the BBC's adaptation of Scarlet and Black and Dennis Potter's Lipstick on Your Collar. Shallow Grave was his big screen break.
It just all clicked. He's a genius writer, John, I think. He really, really is.
Directed by Danny Boyle.
Figment Films had started with a bang. But could the team make as big a noise the second time around?
We got offered a lot of thrillers and all this kind of stuff, but Andrew had this book, Trainspotting.
Yeah, I took it to John and Danny and said, let's make this as our next film.
We had this common reaction to the book, which was, it just blew us away, I think. I'd not read anything like it.
The team weren't the only ones blown away. Trainspotting's riotous tales of heroin addiction and unsavoury behaviour were becoming cult reading for the 90s chemical generation. Narrated by an array of unscrupulous characters, the novel was set in an Edinburgh unfamiliar to festival goers. It was the first book from writer Irvine Welsh and was inspired by his own experiences of life in the city in the 80s.
I found his old diaries basically, and I started to kind of write them up as stories. And I had kind of, I had thousands of them literally, and I didn't know kind of where to start or stop. So it didn't have any beginning, middle, and end at first.
Welsh's short stories first appeared in the late 80s in underground magazines. When he tried to develop them into a novel, it was more difficult than he'd imagined.
My first drafts of Trainspotting were written very much in the kind of, the Queen's English, which it just sounded nonsense, it sounded pretentious. I mean, people wouldn't kind of think like that or talk like that or kind of act like that, and it took away all the kind of colour and soul and character from the book. So I put that back in by thinking about who the characters actually were and how they would sort of speak and act and kind of interact with each other, and that's when it kind of really took off.
The novel hit bookstores in 1993, and expectations for a book about Scottish junkies weren't high. But Trainspotting flew off the shelves, selling thousands in its first year of publication.
If you hadn't read Trainspotting, you weren't cool. And very similar to James Joyce's Ulysses, everybody had a copy, but not necessarily everybody read it.
I thought it was a fantastic book. It was funny and just involving and everything. I thought it was a difficult subject for a film.
John's feeling, I think, was, how the hell am I going to do this? This is going to be really difficult. This is a fantastic piece of writing, but as a movie...
Straight from the start, people were saying this would make a great film. I mean, I couldn't see it as a film at all. I mean, I could see it as a play because it was very dialogue intensive.
Sick boy picks
In
up
1994, the novel was adapted for the stage, with Welsh's interconnecting stories woven around the character of Mark Renton, played by Ewan Bremner.
Supposed to be a fucking taxi rank here. Supposed to be fucking August now, but I'm freezing my boys off here. No shit yet, but I can feel it coming. It's in the fucking post, that's for sure.
I saw the play a few times. It was fantastic.
The play had been hugely successful in Scotland, and you couldn't get a ticket for love nor money.
It just showed the power and the originality and the humour of Irvine's writing.
The novel had made a successful transition to stage, but no one knew if the book would survive the big screen treatment, least of all the author.
My main consideration was, I didn't want it to be a kind of worthy kind of morality tale about the evils of drugs.
Danny wrote him a letter saying that John